Of course, dear friend, let us begin ever so softly. Now take a slow breath in through your nose and gently release it through your mouth. Feel the quiet of this moment. Notice the stillness in your shoulders. Let your eyelids grow heavier. Feel the gentle weight of your body sinking deeper into the softness beneath you. Imagine a flicker of golden firelight on stone. A distant bell echoing through ancient alleyways. A cool breeze drifting in from a nearby canal. The air smells faintly of salt and warm ash, and there is a hush, a silence that feels safe and full of story. You are safe. You are still. You are ready to drift. Our story tonight begins in Venice, not the Venice of gondolas and postcards, but a Venice long ago, a city of misty rooftops and creaking wooden shutters, of cloaked figures moving by candlelight, of craftsmen and apprentices whose hands shaped beauty from flame and earth. This is the story of one such craftsman, an old man with eyes like morning smoke, a glassblower, who worked by moonlight and whispered to the fire as if it were his friend. Let us begin with the very first breath of midnight. In a workshop near the water's edge, there is a gentle rustle of linen as he rises from his cot. The cot is carved from old cherry wood, softened by time and sleep. Beside it, a candle flickers inside a horn lantern. The flame dances quietly, casting long shadows on the walls of the workshop. The floor creaks beneath his bare feet, planks warmed by the day's sun, but cooled now by the night outside. A gondola drifts past, the orb barely skimming the water. He is known simply as Matteo, no surname needed. Not in this part of Venice where reputation flows like the tide. Matteo breathes deeply. The air smells of charcoal and brine. He crosses the room, slowly lifting the hood of his forge and feeding it with kindling wrapped in rosemary sprigs. It is a strange thing how some glassblowers scent their fire, but Matteo always believed the herbs helped the glass remember the stars tonight. He hopes it will remember a little more. In the corner of the room, resting against a curved iron stand, lies a pane of cooled glass. It is smooth, clear, but not yet perfect. Its surface is calm, but something inside it stirs. You see, Matteo is not making just any pane of glass. He is chasing a story, a whisper told to him by an old Moorish traveler who claimed there was a way to trap starlight if the glass was blown at the exact moment the moon touched the horizons. So tonight he waits. The forge crackles gently. Now a low warmth begins to bloom in the room. Faint orange light reflects off every curve of iron, and copper tools hang neatly on the wall, each one softened by use. Their handles shaped by fingers long gone, except for Matteo. Lifts a rod of metal from its place, testing its balance in his palm. Then he turns to the shelves, rows of bottles, each filled with powder finer than sand, silica, ash, limestone. The holy trinity of medieval glass. He scoops the powders, measures by feel, not weight. A pinch of this, a little more of that. When asked how he knows how much, Matteo always smiles. Glass listens. He says, you just have to speak softly. The mixture is poured into a crucible and placed into the open mouth of the forge. The temperature climbs slowly, steadily, like a heartbeat quickening in warmth. Matteo hums as he waits, a low tune, barely a melody, a lullaby his mother once sang when the lagoon winds howled at the shutters. He walks to the window. The moon is low now, pale gold, as if someone spilled honey across the sky. Is nearly time. Readies the blowpipe, a long hollow tube, darkened by fire. He checks the balance again, the way a knight might check his sword. The heat intensifies. The mix begins to melt, slowly turning to a glowing pool of amber. He lifts the crucible with thick gloves and carefully begins the gathering, turning the pipe, slowly rolling the molten glass like honey around a spoon. The glow is hypnotic. It pulses with warmth, with possibility, with memory. He steps to the shaping bench, turns the pipe, blows gently. Slowly, the shape grows round and clear and full of breath. As he turns the pipe, his eyes lift. The moon is touching the water now, a moment, just a breath of time. And he speaks, not loudly, but soft, like a promise. Catch it, catch the light, hold it just once, just tonight. He gathers again, adding another layer, turns it, blows again. His breath is slow, measured like a monk. In prayer, the glass is alive in his hands. It spins. It sings. A hum only he can hear, and for a moment, just a blink, a flicker, he sees Ida shimmer inside the glass, not a reflection, but a glow, a soft glimmer like moonlight in deep water. He stills the pipe, rests on the cradle. He leans in, examining the curve. There is something there, something he has never seen before. He does not speak, he does not move, he only listens, and the glass in its own quiet way seems to whisper back, "It is nearly finished now." He rolls it, slowly gathers it into the mold, and lets it cool very slowly. Whispers slow hours pass, like mist. The forge dies down, its glow turning from orange to embers, to ash outside. The canal is still, the moon has vanished, and the stars have retreated into clouds, but in the workshop, the light remains in the cooled glass. There is something, a shimmer. A memory of night, not seen, but felt. Matteo lifts the cooled pane. His hands do not tremble, but his breath catches. He holds it to the window, and in the pane he sees not just the room, not just himself, but the sky. A sky he could not see through cloud and fog, yet there it is in the glass, a mirror of starlight, soft, silent, and impossibly clear. He does not speak, he only smiles. The kind of smile worn by those who waited a lifetime for something no one believed could be real. He sets the pane gently against the wall, wrapped in soft cloth, and returns to the forge, not to make another, but to sit beside the fading warmth and rest beneath a story now captured forever in glass. And as you breathe deeply and slowly and gently, perhaps you too can feel it. That shimmer, that stillness, that ancient quiet, as if you too are resting beside the fire in the quiet heart of a city where dreams are shaped in flame and stories sleep in sand and starlight close. Your eyes now let the glow fade, the story rests, and so do you. Sleep well, dream slow, and remember, light does not disappear, it only waits to be found again. Of course, dear friend, let us sink even deeper now, back into the warmth of the forge. Back into the misted canals of Venice, back into the stillness of the story that glows like a breath held in glass. Pain rests, wrapped in cloth, quiet as a sleeping cat. Matteo dozes beside the dying fire, his head resting on folded arms. A faint breeze stirs the edge of a parchment, and somewhere beyond the workshop walls, a gull calls once, then falls silent. But this story does not end, for stories like glass can be shaped again. Morning in Venice arrives slowly. The city stirs as if from a long dream. Soft golden light spills over terracotta roofs. Ripples flicker across the canals, and shutters creak open one by one. But inside the glassblower shop, the light touches something stranger, older. A single pane of glass wrapped in linen, resting on a table of oliva wood. Macho wakes not with alarm, but with a quiet breath, as though his dream were still unfolding. He rubs his eyes, rises, and pours a cup of barley tea from the kettle over the hearth. The room smells of ash and warm iron, and something sweeter like moonlight held too long. He walks to the cloth-wrapped pane, unfolds it slowly. The glass within is cool to the touch, but not cold. It glows faintly, even in daylight, and when he tilts it toward the window, there it is again, the shimmer like a reflection of a sky that doesn't exist. Matteo smiles, but says nothing. Instead, he lifts the pane carefully and fits it into a wooden frame carved weeks before for a commission that never came. The fit is perfect. It always is when the work is meant to be. Then he does something unusual. He sets the framed glass in the center of the workshop on a low stool and simply waits. The bell of San Zaccaria rings across the water, marking the 3rd hour after dawn, and just as the final chime fades, a knock sounds at the workshop door. Matteo turns slowly, unlocks the latch, and opens the door to reveal a girl no older than 12, her boots soaked and her eyes wide as coins. "You're the glass man," she says softly. He nods once, not needing words. They say, "You make things that see the sky." She adds. He gestures her inside. The girl steps in her coat, damp with fog. She peers at the glass in the center of the room, tilts her head, and narrows one eye. What does it do? She whispers. Mateo smiles gently and replies, just as softly it remembers. The girl walks around it, hands behind her back. Her reflection follows her, but not quite in time, a fraction slower, like it's thinking. She gasps softly and leans in close. Is that? She doesn't finish the question, because in the pain, she sees stars, not the stars above. Not even stars from last night, but stars from somewhere else. Stars that glow blue and ripple gently, as if floating in water. It's like a dream. She breathes. Mateo only nods, for he knows this glass is no longer his. Alone that evening, after the girl leaves, Mateo walks to the edge of the canal. He carries the mirror with him, wrapped once again in linen, cradled like a child. He steps onto a gondola, and the gondolier, an old man with hands like driftwood, says nothing, just rows slowly into the deepening dusk. They pass beneath arching bridges and silent windows where candlelight flickers against stained glass. At the far edge of the city, near a dock forgotten by most maps, Mateo steps off and walks into a building with no sign inside. The walls are lined with shelves. Each shelf holds only one thing, a mirror, but not ordinary mirrors. Each one is different, some oval, some square, some made from sea glass, others from obsidian. Mateo places his new creation on the final shelf, the empty one. He steps back and bows his head slightly. Woman appears from the shadows. Her robe is deep violet, embroidered with tiny stars. She says nothing, only lifts the mirror and inspects it carefully. Then she speaks, her voice like wind through silk. You've captured something rare, moon, at horizon breath, at rest a moment between sighs. Mateo bows again. The woman places the mirror behind a curtain of sheer gold, and it vanishes as if it had never been, except Mateo knows it is now part of the archive, a place where reflections are kept. Not for vanity, but for memory, where glass holds not just images, but emotion, whispers secrets from the sky. He leaves without another word, his hands empty, but his heart full. That night in his quiet workshop, Mateo begins a gay new mixture, new sand, new silence. The forge is quiet but waiting, the tools rest but ready, and in the air, as soft as the breath between dreams, a new idea begins to form. He does not chase the stars this time. Instead, he thinks of water ripples in a well. The way a tear glows on a child's cheek in candlelight. He scoops the ash, measures the lime, and hums softly to the shadows. Because in Venice, when the wind is still and the fire low, some say the glass listens, and sometimes, only sometimes, it remembers how to dream. Of course, dear one, let the hush deepen. Let the night soften around you. Let the story unfold like ripples on a midnight canal. Are safe here, wrapped in velvet silence, held by flickering firelight and the voice of the story that never truly ends, only quiets until the next breath begins. Now drift with me once more to a place of molten memory, to the hands of a glassblower, who shapes more than sand. He shapes echoes, he shapes time. The following morning a letter arrives, not by courier, but folded into the mouth of a blue glass bottle that bobs gently beside Mateo's dock. He finds it while feeding breadcrumbs to the gulls. At first, he thinks it debris of fisher's discard, but then he sees the seal pressed into dark purple wax. A 7-pointed star wrapped in waves. He lifts the bottle, pulls the cork, and unfolds the parchment. Slowly the paper smells of cloves and salt. Handwriting is strange letters bent like branches in wind. It says only this: there is a girl on the island of Torcello. Her voice is fading, but her dreams are vivid. We ask only for a listening mirror. Leave it beneath the bell tower before the next full tide. Mateo folds the letter once, presses it flat with a warm palm, and places it beneath a heavy shard of cobalt glass. He does not question the message. These requests come rarely, but when they do, they are never wrong. He begins to gather his tools for this mirror. He chooses green sand washed in the tide pools of Lido, the kind that holds whispers rather than echoes. He mixes it with ash from burnt rosemary and a pinch of powdered lavender, so the glass will carry calm even when held by trembling Hands the forge glows again, not fierce, but steady a companion. Not a storm as the mixture melts. Matteo prepares the mold. This one will be oval-rounded like an eye gently closed. He lines the mold with rabbit fur, the old way to catch stray energies. And soften the spirit of the glass of the workshop is silent except for the steady breath of the bellows and the occasional clink of iron. Against stone, when the glass is ready, he gathers it slowly, like scooping honey from a sleeping flower. He blows. It gently turns the pipe and blows again. His breath is slow like the ocean inhaling at low tide. Glass grows soft and warm and begins to pulse with color, not bright but alive. He shapes the oval, lets it cool, then polishes it with silk steeped in rosewater. No frame, this time just the glass, soft around the edges, like a memory you never quite forget. When it is done, he wraps it in white linen, ties it with red thread, and slips it into a wooden case. He rows the boat himself past San Michele, past Murano, until the marsh grasses of Torcello rise around him, tall and whispering. Bell Tower waits, leaning slightly with age, as if it has bent to listen. Beneath its shadow, Matteo places the case, then bows once and leaves without a word behind him. A crow calls twice, then falls silent. That night he dreams of a girl not more than 9, with eyes that do not open but see everything. She sits beside the mirror, her fingers tracing the glass. She does not speak, but her breath forms tiny shapes. On the surface, stars, birds, a tree with golden fruit. The dream Matteo does not move, he only watches. And the girl, she smiles once, then the mirror glows gently and disappears. He wakes with tears on his cheeks and the taste of lavender on his tongue. The days that follow, more bottles come. One holds a poem written in a dialect spoken only in the Dolomites about a woman who saw her ancestors' faces in the mirror Matteo made 20 years ago. Another contains a feather blue and gold with a note that reads, "He finally remembered his name. Thank you." And a third bottle holds only sandcourse and red with a single word carved into a sliver of bone. Restored, Matteo places each bottle on a shelf above the forge. They clink softly when the wind moves through the window slats like wind chimes or quiet applause. One evening, as the forge glows low, a knock comes again. Is the girl from days ago, the one who first saw the starlight pane? But she is not alone. Beside her stands a boy slightly younger, holding a small cage. Inside the cage, a bird of glass wings, translucent head, bowed. "Did you make this?" she asks. Matteo nods. "I tried." He whispers. "It stopped flying," the boy says, "after the storm." Matteo lifts the cage, turns it in the light. The bird has cracked a thin line down its back. Not broken, but tired. He opens the cage, gently places the bird in his palm. Not flightless, Lee murmurs, just waiting. He carries the bird to the workbench, not to fix, but to listen. He places his ear to the glass and hears something faint like wind in a hollow pipe or a lullaby sung underwater. He lifts a brush, dips it in pine resin, and traces the cracks slowly, carefully, as if painting silence itself. The children watch, not speaking, hardly breathing. When he finishes, he places the bird back in the boy's hands. "It may not fly with wings anymore," Matteo says, "but it will still carry dreams." The boy nods a single slow motion, and they leave quietly through the shadowed dormado. Stands alone, but not lonely. Looks around his shop at the bottles, the pane, the empty molds, and he smiles, for the mirrors he makes are not just reflections. They are doorways to healing, to remembering, to dreaming. And tonight, perhaps someone somewhere will sleep more softly because of it. Let the fire dim now. Let the forge rest. Let the canal still. You are safe. You are warm. The mirror holds your stars. The glass listens, and the story sleeps beside you. Good night, and dream gently. Of course, dear dreamer, close your eyes and feel how soft the silence becomes when a story continues without needing to begin. Again, like warm breath from a cooling forge or moonlight that never truly disappears, just folds itself into mist. Let your heart slow. Let the hush return, and listen now to what Glass remembers. Next days passed, then weeks, but the requests never ceased. Some arrived as whispers carried by merchant boys, others folded into the hems of travelers' cloaks. Some came in dreams, others in silence, but Matteo always knew which mirrors were ready to be made. He never asked questions. He never named a price, he only listened on when the glass spoke. He answered with breath, with fire, with patience. One morning before the fog had fully lifted, an old woman arrived, her spine bent like the branch of a fig tree. Her hair was wrapped in ivy-green linen, and her hands trembled with every step. She carried no letter, no gift, no payment. Noli, her eyes and the way they shimmered like candlelight against wet stone. I have no name left, she said softly, no family, no song. But I remember a tree in the orchard behind my childhood home. Its bark was marked with a crescent scar. I think if I saw it again, I would sleep. Matteo said nothing, only motioned for her to scythe. Did not begin melting sand that day. Instead, he retrieved a square of ancient obsidian, dark as ink, smooth as ice, and into it he breathed the slowest breath he had ever given, not to shape but to awaken. The obsidian was old, older than his tools, older than the forge he had kept it hidden. For years, waiting for the right kind of silence, he heated it slowly, not to melt, but to soften, to remember. Then he ground crushed sage leaves into the edge and polished it with a cloth made from a nun's habit, the kind worn in convents where vows of silence still lingered. When the work was done, he placed the mirror in her hands. She looked into it and gasped softly, as if remembering how to breathe. Her eyes welled with tears, and she began to hum a single line of a lullaby, lost for 70 years. Then she slept right there in the chair, the mirror in her lap, and a smile resting against her cheek like a feather from a dream. Matteo let her rest until dusk. Then she rose without a word, left the mirror behind, and disappeared into the evening. He never saw her again, but sometimes when the forge is low and the canals are quiet, he hears her voice singing from the obsidian, as soft as smoke in winter. That winter Venice froze, scoured the shallow canals, and salt wind bit through wool. Even the bells rang slower, their tones dulled by frost. Matteo's forge burned bright, a beacon in the cold one day. A man arrived from Prague, his boots coated in snow, his coat lined with furry, carried a book bound in eelskin, sealed with iron thread. Man placed the book on Matteo's table and said only, "This one must not reflect the present, only the future." Matteo frowned, for mirrors were not meant for prophecy, only memory, only rest. But the man opened the book, and inside drawings of towers, of machines, of great birds with wings of brass, and between the pages a name scribbled in the margins, written by a trembling hand, was Matteo's. On his heart slowed, his fingers curled slightly, and for the first time in many years he felt a tremor in his bones. But he said nothing and began to work. He used white sand from the Adriatic and iron filings shaved from a bell in Ravenna. He mixed it with powdered garnet so that the mirror would shimmer even in darkness. The shape he chose was unlike the others, an arc like the spine of a book or the curve of a promise kept too long. He framed it in bronze, cooled by snow, and once polished, the mirror glowed faintly, as if holding a flame behind glass. When the man looked into it, his breath caught his eyes, widened, and he whispered, "It's true. It's all true." Then, without another word, he wrapped the mirror and vanished into the frost. Matteo sat for a long time in the warmth of his fire, his eyes not on the door, but on the empty space the mirror had left, and, for the first time, he wondered what would happen if he made a mirror for himself. That night he tried. He gathered all the rarest elements, shards of failed dreams, powders from forgotten temples, even a sliver of his own hair braided into a strand of copper. He worked in silence, his breath shallow, his eyes tired, and when the mirror was done, he set it down gently and looked at. First he saw nothing, just his reflection, older, worn, gentle, but then the reflection blinked a moment too. Late. Matteo leaned forward, his heart still, his mind opening the mirror, he saw himself not now but younger, standing on a pier beside a woman, her hand in his. The sky behind them burned orange, and the air smelled of lemons and smoke. He had forgotten her not on purpose, but over time as names faded as seasons passed, but the mirror had remembered day. Single tear traced his cheek, and he whispered, "I'm sorry," as if she could hear. Perhaps she could when the candle burned low. Matteo placed the mirror behind a curtain, not to hide it, but to honor it. Some mirrors he knew were only meant to be looked into once. Then, with quiet fingers, he turned out the lamp and let sleep take him gently, without resistance. Story breathes now like cooling glass, slow and shimmering. Let your mind rest. Let the warmth gather in your chest. Let the fire fade into soft red glow. For even as the forge sleeps, the mirrors remember, and so shall you sleep well. And may the reflections in your dreams be soft, kind, and true. Of course, dear heart, let us drift again into silence, where only the soft voice of memory remains. The forge is glowing gently once more, and the glassblower's hands move like moonlight, shaping not just molten sand, but the tender hush of all that longs to be remembered. You are safe, you are warm, and we are not finished yet. The story still glows softly, like breath on cooled glass. Wind-shifted spring crept into the alleys of Venice, carried by the hush of thawing canals and the scent of plum blossoms blooming too early to brave. Matteo opened the shutters each morning, welcoming the pale gold light that made his shelves shimmer like treasure bottles of sand and ash rows of silent tools and cooling mirrors that whispered only when held gently. One morning, as the mist cleared, a cat appeared on his windowsill. Small, sleek, its fur a soft charcoal gray, and its eyes the green of old glass. It did not meow. It did not ask. It simply stared at him, then leaped gracefully into the workshop as if it had always belonged. Matteo didn't speak. He simply nodded once and let it stay. The cat became his companion. It curled near the forge when he worked, perched atop high shelves, watching with quiet judgment. Its eyes followed the molten globes, as if it too understood how fragile light could be. Sometimes it pawed at the cooled mirrors, but only one in particular. The smallest one, the one he had never sold, a pocket mirror framed in dark walnut, no larger than Matteo's palm. He had made it years ago during a thunderstorm, when the canals surged and lightning drew shadows across the walls. He never showed it to anyone because when he looked into it, he saw nothing at all. No reflection, no shimmer, just a soft black stillness, like a well with no bottom. And yet the cat returned to it again and again. One afternoon, a knock came. Not timid, but not demanding. A girl stood at the door, older than most, perhaps 17. Her cloak was pale blue, her hair the color of wheat in morning sun. She carried nothing except a ring on her finger shaped like a serpent biting its tail. "I was told you make mirrors that do not lie," she said softly. Matteo tilted his head, not agreeing, not denying. "I've forgotten what I looked like before I left," she whispered, "and I need to know if I'm still that person or if I've become something else." Matteo led her inside. He didn't ask where she'd gone, what roads she had taken, what battles she'd faced. Instead, he walked to a drawer and withdrew the pocket mirror. The one the cat always watched. He placed it in her hand. She hesitated, then opened it. At first her brow furrowed. "I see nothing," she whispered. Matteo said nothing. She looked deeper, and slowly her breath changed. Her shoulders lowered, her fingers relaxed. "There I am," she said, not with surprise, but with deep, aching relief. She closed the mirror, held it against her chest, and wept, not loudly, not long, just enough. Then she placed the mirror back in Matteo's hands. "I'm not ready to keep it yet," she said, "but thank you for letting it see me." She left as the sun set, leaving behind nothing except the echo of her presence. That night, the cat curled around the mirror, as if guarding a secret. Matteo smiled and let the forge burn love in. The days that followed, a strange calm settled over the shop. The bottles no longer clinked in the wind. The shutters creaked only once each day. And the mirrors, even the new ones, shone just a little brighter, as if the air itself had softened but one. Mirror remained hidden, tucked behind the shelves beneath a cloth of sea silk, a mirror that Matteo had made and never dared show. Was made from obsidian and star ash collected during the eclipse. It reflected not the past, not the future, but the things we bury within ourselves. It had no frame, no signature, no sentience, silence and weight. Matteo lifted it now, not out of curiosity, but out of quiet necessity. Carried it to the center table, placed it flat, and sat beside it. The cat watched from the beam above, tail swaying, eyes half closed. Matteo looked in, not expecting an answer, but needing to listen him. In the black surface, he saw not a face, but a room. A room with high windows and shelves lined with bottles, a workshop, but not his owning. The corner a child sat, not yet 10, blowing gently through a narrow pipe, trying, failing, trying again. Behind the child a figure watched. Tall, cloaked face. Lissa child did not see him, but the figure remained always present. Matteo gasped, for he recognized the child. It was himself, before the forge, before the mirrors, before the silence. He watched, and the mirror trembled. The child dropped the pipe and turned as if he could hear Matteo's breath through the glass. Then the vision faded, and only Matteo's own reflection remained, tired, quiet, but whole. He covered the mirror once more and placed it back into shadow. Next morning, the cat was gone, not a hair left behind, not a paw print, not a whisper, only a single shard of green glass. On the sill, shaped like an eye, curved like a crescent moon. Matteo held it in his palm, then placed it beside the pocket mirror and lit a small candle between them for the watchers. He whispered, for those who see. And now, dear dreamer, as the story softens once more and the light of the forge turns to a golden hush, may you too feel seen, feel held, feel gently reflected in this glass of night clothes. Your eyes, the mirrors are quiet now, and you are exactly where you need to be.